Hey, ooh, my name is Brittany Martin,
My name is Ravyn Prevost.
and we will be presenting a presentation for our language disorders course.
Okay, so our presentation focuses on the promotion of speech, language, and literacy in infants and how new mothers should encourage and engage in development through milestones with their little one. So this is basically a mother's guide to new mothers who are wondering, how can I interact with my little one or like stimulate their minds to produce language development during their early infancy ages and stages.
It's going to also provide some tips and like tools on how to encourage their child to get through those different developmental stages of language and just have a smooth transition through it. Alrighty, so what we're going to talk about is just the language development process. This is where children come to understand and communicate during their early childhood. I'm sorry. So during this process, although each child is kind of individualized and they may develop language at different speeds or in different orders, they typically follow an orderly process. And it touches on different milestones that can be identified with each developmental stage.
Okay, so first up, we have the pre-linguistic period. This normally occurs the moment a baby enters the world. So, most babies, they enter the world, they come out crying, or sometimes if the child doesn't come out crying, like, doctors may stimulate or do something to like engage them or stimulate the crying activity. And they also have like, basically it's nonverbal ways of communicating. They come out not knowing much, so they only do what their instincts are telling them to do. So sometimes you may see like sucking motions as communication, like that's signalizing that they're ready to feed or ready to be fed. They have squinting. Sometimes that is like a sign of upset stomach or like digestive issues that may be taking place. And all of these are just basic ways that newborn babies or like little ones in their like infancy stage, this is how they communicate with their mother, being that they don't have any like vocal or verbal communication skills just yet.
Yes, and it's important to know pre-linguistic focuses on the period prior to acquiring language. So typically like the first 12 months, which is infancy. And this time period, the child communicates, like Raven says, but it's in a non-meaningful way. So they don't really use words or express their ways other than through some sort of crying or grunts and things of that sort. All right.
Okay, so you can go ahead.
You can go ahead, Raven.
Alrighty, so we have pre-linguistic communication development. So this focuses on the pragmatic elements of language, and all of these elements play a vital role in the development of language in children. So they have three different elements that are a part of this pre-linguistic communication development. Correct me if I'm wrong on how to pronounce these words, but you have elocution, which is the intention of the speaker. So their intention on what they're saying to the child is to basically stimulate the pre-linguistic communication development. You have locution, which is the literal significance of a sentence, and then you have perlocution, which is how it was received by the listener. So in this case, the baby.
All right, so this is the perlocutionary period. This is typically the first stage of communication development that the child goes through. It deals with the first 8 months of an infant's life, and it's also a very vital part for the parent or the caregiver because it's important to engage that child in communication because usually their behaviors that they exhibit are not intentionally communicative. So some of the behaviors that a child may do can include like crying, usually in response to an internal stimuli, which could be they're crying due to being hungry or in pain or anger. They may exhibit some facial expressions, and you may see limbs and mouth movements. It also addresses proto-conversations, which is an interaction between an adult which is typically maybe the mother, and the baby, where it's like an exchange of sounds and gestures and words. And it's an attempt to convey some sort of meaning. And it's a key aspect in an infant's life because it promotes the initiating of taking turns and those skills that are needed in normal conversation.
All right, so we have the elutionary period. By 8 months, the infant should be transitioning into this period. In my opinion, this is like the fun period, like watching my nieces and nephews grow and go through these different stages of pre-linguistic communication. The child begins to point at objects. They bring objects to adults that they find intriguing, and is able to use their vision to follow objects around that are, in kind of plain sight. The infants also begin to comprehend words in this period. This period is kind of like a stepping stone for new parents. They get intrigued when their baby starts making little small milestones and milestones that they can actually recognize. So I feel like this is a great period for parents to really get engaged in, especially new mothers or new parents overall, because this helps them to stay engaged and to stay on track. So the more that you engage with your little one during this stage, like, if they point at an object, ask them, what's this object? Of course, they may not be able to tell you, but it's still engaging and prompting them to continue doing what they're doing, to continue that growth in their pre-linguistic communication.
Alrighty, so this would be the locutionary period, which is the final stage of that communicative developmental process. Typically occurs around 12 months of age. This is where the child is able to use joint attention to locate objects outside of their immediate visual field. Around the child's first birthday, they typically begin to use words as replacement for gestures. For instance, they may notice that there are balls around, where usually they would point to the ball, and as the parent or the adult, you would notice that they maybe wanted that ball due to their gestures, but now they may be able to start pronouncing little words. Symbolic representation starts to occur, meaning that they start making the connection of what this word means to that actual object. And then also the child is now considered a toddler. So infancy has now went to the back burner, and this child is now considered a toddler. They typically start to begin to walk and is no longer unable to speak.
Alrighty, so far we've discussed the pre-linguistic communication development. Now we're going to take a closer look at the pre-linguistic vocal development. So here we have stage 1, which is reflexive vocalizations. This really typically starts from birth up until about 2 months. So the child may experience or show the mother that they're having like grunts, crying, sighs, sneezes. And as parents, you should typically repeat these sounds to your little one to show them and introduce them to the first level of vocalization, and to kind of show them the importance of these sounds that they're actually exhibiting. So reflexive vocalizations, that's kind of typically the internal stimuli that Brittany was talking about, the crying, which is internally stimulated from pain or hunger, or basically things that we can't physically see with our eyes. And then you have vegetative, which is vowel-like sounds, which I said was the sighs, the grunts, the sneeze, the hiccups, things like that. And also a tip that we have included in this PowerPoint was, like I said, to repeat these sounds to your child. Make them feel like, the sounds that they're making are important. And most parents might feel like, okay, they're only 2 months or 1 month, but all of these things play a vital role in their vocalization development.
So now we're moving on to stage 2. This is where you are about 2 to 4 months, or your child's about 2 to 4 months. You start viewing them, and they could begin to coo and make laughter and things of that sort. And they're mostly like pleasure sounds associated with contentment and pleasure. Laughter will typically begin to appear about maybe 16 weeks or so. And those vegetative sounds that the previous stage discussed begin to decrease. A good tip in this stage would be to continue to respond to your child's sound effects that they're making, like laughter. You would want to maybe laugh back at them, kind of engaging them in conversation. Making noises, because your child begins to make more noises around this time. You want to encourage those noises while making them back or making some new ones to get them kind of open to hearing the new things.
Alrighty, we have stage 3. Stage 3 is vocal play, and this normally happens around 4 to 6 months. The baby begins to use vowel-like and consonant sounds to make room for babbling. So things such as squealing, yelling, lip smacking, and producing other sounds, these will occur during the vocal play stage. Mothers should also repeat the sounds that they're making during this stage, and try to reiterate the use of vowels and consonants, and also try to incorporate new ones. If they're saying ah or ba, like, try to incorporate the da or another vowel sound that isn't too hard, like fricatives or word blends, but still like vowel sounds that the baby may be able to repeat after you. So that's another thing that that would stimulate the vocal development in your child. You don't want to stay in one place and let them do what they do. You want to continue stimulating them to help them grow.
And intonation, which is also just a little something to add to it, starts to occur in stage 3. Intonation variations, that deals with like the rise and the fall of your voice, which is very important in conversation because it keeps the person receiving I guess the message, your communication, it keeps them intrigued. And so maybe the baby starts making more squealing and yelling sounds that are kind of higher in tone and maybe back down. And so it just kind of keeps them engaged and keeps the conversation lively. All right, so we're gonna show just a brief little video of a 6-month-old baby in stage 3 that we just got done discussing of the prelinguistic vocal development. So, let's see. So that was a perfect example of like the mother interacting with the child on communicating sounds and repeating them back to her and just pretty much overall doing vocal play. Oops. Let's see. All right.
Alrighty, so stage 4, we have the canonical babbling. I'm sorry, and this is typically from 6 months on older. In this stage, this is where reduplicated babbling and non-reduplicated babbling occurs. So both have a repetitive string of vowels and consonants, but in non-reduplicated consonants, vowels may change. Vowels and consonants may change, but in the reduplicated, they often stay the same. So in this stage, I would recommend that new mothers start prompting the infant to say mama or dada, and other physical engagements such as like dancing, singing, playing like patty cake, itsy bitsy spider, things like that to kind of engage and keep those consonants either staying the same, like I said, with the reduplicated, or even engaging with the child to stimulate more non-reduplicated babbling. So mababina, like things like that. Those type of words began to grow prevalent in their communication and their vocal development in the babbling stage of stage 4.
Around this time too, being that the child is beginning to start making sounds that sound a little more meaningful, like the ma, things of that sort, sometimes the adult or the parent can begin to, think that the child is maybe making a step to saying their first words, which could actually be the case. But they are in the process of forming those sounds. And I know we keep repeating this, but it's very, very important to continue to engage your child. All of those tips that we include at the bottom are very important. You want to continue to engage them as much as you can, because all it's going to do is promote that, language development. So this is the jargon stage, which is stage number 5. It's typically the final pre-linguistic vocal development stage. It's known as conversational babbling, which is jargon. Jargon is kind of like people would consider maybe gibberish talk, like they have an intent behind what they're trying to say, or you can anticipate that they're trying to say something, but it doesn't quite come out sensical. So the child begins to combine non-reduplicated babbles with varieties of intonation and stress patterns. The child may verbalize their words during a string of jargon, and the parent and strangers may believe the child has actually created words or words that we can understand. So a good tip in this final stage would be to begin using simple language to encourage development of first words. So like ball, food, dog, make your intention behind the words connect to maybe some of the previous gestures that they're used to communicating to you.
Okay, so at 1 year of age, the child has certain milestones that they're likely to have obtained. And the milestones that you may see at 1 year of age is children, they begin to start walking, or they're pulling up to stand up on things by their own, or holding on to furniture. They love to play. They love to imitate during play. But they also like to initiate play with adults, children. They begin to be more like a child. Like they begin to interact with others. They want to do things on their own. They want to dial a phone, or if they see you on the phone, they want to place the phone to their ear. They want to brush their hair. They try to imitate many of the things that they see their mother doing. And they also like to say things like no, bye-bye, words like that. Oftentimes, a lot of parents try to I don't want to say jump the gun, but they try to like initiate fricatives in their vocabulary and in their vocalization at this age. But words such as like shoe and them and that, those don't really come this soon, but it's still good to kind of engage with your child and try to initiate those type of words, even though they're still with the they're still pronouncing and saying things like mama or dad. So
all right, so now we're entering 2 years of age, and the milestones that are associated with this age typically are the child begins to be excited when other children are around. They can start connecting with other children. They begin to start sorting out shapes and colors, which is a good thing to introduce them to, so that they could understand that these shapes go in this category, or these colors match with this color. Make-believe play is introduced around this time. They may take an empty bowl and they may act like they're making food in it, or that they're eating food. Following simple instructions, they're able to do things like wash your hands, or eat the food. Simple instructions. Ability to point at objects that you name. If I were to say, where's the dog? Or is this a dog? They can point it out and show you that this is what this object is. And they begin to verbalize 2 to 4 word utterances or sentences. And then they repeat words that they overhear in conversations typically.
Okay, by 3 years of age, the child typically is beginning to imitate like their playmates and different adults. So if they see someone, let's say their mother is working out, they're going to try to imitate the push-up or the jumping jack, things like that. They do begin to show affection to people at this age, so they may shower their mother with kisses. They love to give hugs. They love to just show affection to their mother. They match the objects with pictures, like Brittany said. In this day and age, a lot of mothers are using like this game that you can find on the App Store that allows children to like match circles and shapes with the same color. That stimulates that type of like mental cognition ability to match things. They continue to play, but their creativity grows a little higher at the age of 3. So they're able to give animals and dolls names, and they can tell you the relationship between like the animal and the doll, or they're starting to place relationships on different characters that they're using in their imagination. They also like to begin using like pronouns, so you, me, dog, cat. They're beginning to use pronouns and things like that when describing different people in their lives. And they also kind of express like a wide range of emotions. So they'll let you know when they're sad or when they're happy, when they're hungry. Like they're at that age to where they can actually verbalize how they're feeling to the mother.
So between about 4 to 5 years of age, you will start to see a child being able to follow 3-step commands: washing your hands, comb your hair. Maybe at this age, they can begin to draw out shapes, like, of course, simple shapes: circle, square, triangle. They're verbalizing about 5 to 6 word utterances or sentences, and they have a clear enough speech that if a stranger was around or someone out in public was to hear them, they would be able to understand them effectively. They have the ability to name certain colors and also maybe count, probably typically 1 to 10. They can share and take turns with others, which is why vocal play is very important at an early age, because you can start engaging them in the proper way to communicate with others. Sharing and taking turns, that's a vital aspect of communication. Ability to differentiate between genders. So now they know that this is female, this is male, or that's a boy, that's a girl. Role play continues on here. Understanding opposites from this is very hot, this is very cold. And then also the ability to brush their teeth with little assistance is also something that they're able to do.
Alrighty, so after reading chapter 2 and just doing a little further research during the process of language development, children typically they follow the established guidelines and timeline that they're normally scheduled to follow. But in order for children to stay on track and to actually develop language and vocal development as they should, parents have to engage with their children. They have to keep stimulating these things and giving them feedback to know that what they're doing is correct. So I hope that these tips were great for new mothers to help them migrate during their new their new parenthood and their new motherhood, and just to help them to be able to help their children acquire language and to continue their pre-linguistic development, and then even further beyond that.
All right, so just to kind of conclude with everything, we have just a few frequently asked questions that typically come up when a new mother or mother in general is just trying to understand the process of language development in their child. So the first one would be, what if my child appears to be delayed with their language development? So the answer that we would suggest would be, if you notice that your child appears to be delayed, which can possibly happen, it is important to seek insight from a trained professional, which would be typically your speech language pathologist. You can inquire maybe an assessment to take place with your child, because typically when they become the age of school age, which would be about 5 years old, some things could be considered the natural process of language development, but some things may also be looked at as a delay. So it's just important to check those milestones out to make sure your child is on the right path. If your child is an appropriate age and does require speech therapy, this can encourage the development of speech. The second question would be, what are some common activities for language development? And we briefly discussed some while we went throughout this PowerPoint, but just to add an extra few: reading books, singing, dancing, playing some matching games, which I believe Ravyn mentioned. We use technology a lot nowadays. There's options through apps on your phone, maybe websites on the computer, and all of those things are great in encouraging language development. And then the final question that we typically hear is, can exposing my child to other children, such as maybe in a daycare or a play date setting, encourage language development? And the answer is yes. Children tend to engage and process children's speech a little different. They're able to catch on rather quickly, and this can help them pick up on maybe certain words that another child has learned. And just learning that proper social skills and communication, that's also going to be a major aspect in their development.
And here we have our reference page. These are all of the references that we use to complete this presentation. I really feel like the textbook was the most helpful. That gave a ton of insight on the development of language in infancy and young children. And also I wanted to throw in there another tip for young mothers. I have seen a lot of mothers who have gone through, their children have delayed speech issues and things like that. I would just say to not be ashamed of, your child and what they're going through, but to properly get the help that they need so that, things like this don't continue on until their adulthood and just their adolescence. So don't be ashamed of, the things that your child is going through, but to be a stepping stone to help them get through this. And use your resources. There are plenty mothers who are going through the same thing that you are. Never feel like you're alone or you just have no one to help you through this process. There are tons and tons of resources that are out there. And, just embrace it. Embrace what your child is going through, because they're going to get through it and it'll be a testimony in the end.
Yes. All right, y'all. So that concludes our presentation today. I'm going to stop sharing this screen now and bring it back to just us. And we thank y'all for joining in with us on this presentation. Ravyn, you have anything?
Not really. Like Brittany said, I hope you guys enjoyed the presentation. I hope it was effective and meaningful and that you got something out of it. And like I said, don't be ashamed, embrace it. And I hope that, everyone has a great process through learning and language development.
And good luck with everything. All righty. We will see you guys later.